Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Länsstyrelsen in Stockholm. I'm Carina Udén. I'm head of the growth department here at Länsstyrelsen. And today we are going to be discussing and being inspired by how smart specialization could improve and strengthen our innovation here in Stockholm. So please, a special welcome to our guests. Just have to Dr. John Moody from Nordregio. Welcome to you. We have Dr. Jukka Terres from Nordregio and Professor Tanja Tukainen from Aalto University. So this is I'm looking forward to a very inspirational discussion this morning. And here to guide us is Maria Lindqvist, who is responsible for these processes at Länsstyrelsen. So, Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, I'm so happy to see that we managed to get so many of you to join us today, since this is the last week before Christmas. But we think this is a very important issue, so I'm very happy to see all of you here. As you might know, we are in the process of revising the innovation strategy of Stockholm. We have an innovation strategy and we have a structural funds program, but we have been criticized by the European Commission and DG Regio for not having a very clear smart specialization strategy. We do have some specializations, it's not that, but we haven't managed to articulate them and market them enough to the European Commission. So we think that's something we have to do while we are revising the innovation strategy of Stockholm, and of course building on the strengths that we have in this region when it comes to strong companies, businesses, research and public actors who are involved in this process. So, but we think that to do this we need to know a little bit more about what is smart specialization. What are other regions doing? Could we get some inspiration from others, like for Helsinki region, who are working with these things a little bit more than we are doing in Stockholm right now. So I think this is an excellent opportunity to get to learn a little bit more about this. So I just want to hand over to Dr. John Moody to start to tell us a little bit about what is this with smart specialization and why do we have to bother? Please.
Or should I? Oh, there we go. Okay, fantastic. Okay. It is, yeah, very early. Okay. Anyway, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Maria. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks for welcoming me here today. It's really great to be here on this early start. In fact, last night, usually before a big presentation, I get extremely nervous. And this led to some of like the most surreal dreams last night, where I was I was dreaming that I was giving a presentation on European smart specialization in an English pub to a load of Brexit voters. Now, naturally, I'm hoping you'll be a much more responsive and fair audience than they were, because they got really tough last night. Anyway, as you know, I've been introduced. My name's Dr. John Moody. I'm from Newcastle originally, but I've been working at Nordregio Research Institute for the last 2 years. Now, my background, I have a background both in academic life and in the dark and murky world of consultancy. So my academic background is primarily in EU research and innovation policy. But when it comes to consultancy, I was primarily involved in helping businesses, universities, industries, civil society groups to get funding and access to funding from the European Union. But most recently, in when it comes to my consultancy work, I've been working on a number of projects relating to smart specialization. In particular, helping regional public authorities to develop strategies. So, when it comes to the concept of smart specialization, this was a concept which was invented in the ivory towers of universities. Now, having worked in a university, the one thing you know when you work there is that most ideas and concepts that come out of universities are not intelligible to most human beings. So part of the issue here is to try and, Maria's invited me here today to introduce the broad concept of smart specialization and try and make it a little bit, hopefully a little bit more understandable to you. I think when it comes to the concept of smart specialization, well, if you look beneath all the kind of the academic jargon and all the fancy words, there is a very simple concept there, actually. And I think it's a concept that, if implemented correctly, can be quite effective in promoting regional innovation growth. So the aim of this presentation is firstly to say, you know, why is the concept of smart specialization relevant to the Stockholm region? And secondly, it's to try and focus on why is it relevant to your business? Why should you get involved working with the public authorities to help generate a new strategy for the Stockholm region? I probably need to... Sorry, Maria. What do I need to press here? What do I...
We
Oh.
can see it.
Yeah.
It's fine from here. It's really it's strange.
The top one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay, so where do we start? We start with the concept. Smart specialization. So smart specialization is essentially a policy concept which aims to boost regional innovation growth by assisting regions to develop their own unique and tailor-made strategies based on areas of regional innovation strength. So the key here is the focus on the regions. This is about regions and identifying areas where they have innovation strength and comparative advantage in the European market. It's really quite simple and straightforward in that regard, because traditionally when it comes to European developing innovation policies, it's usually been a top-down process. That's the history of innovation policy. It's usually governments picking winners and subsidizing industries which they think are gonna boost the economy. But there's been a failure of that in Europe, because basically there's a research and innovation gap which is kind of grown up. And frankly, Europe is just not competitive when it comes to the global market because of this research and innovation gap. Europe fails to develop the big companies like the Googles, the Amazons, the Microsofts. We just don't produce companies like that. And I think the European Commission is pretty desperate to do that. But so basically, because the national strategies were failing, they want to focus in at the regional level. So every public authority at the regional level is now required to develop a smart specialization strategy. Now, smart specialization strategies, they have two key areas of focus. The first part is the Commission want regions to identify areas where they specialize in. So these are areas of competitive advantage where they're going to go into the global market and generate growth growth for the region. The second part of this is to identify areas of what they refer to as diversification. So it's not just about identifying specialist areas, it's about identifying new areas which you can move into within specific themes, in developing new products and services which can make the region more competitive on a global scale. So the second key element of developing a smart specialization strategy is to establish partnerships between businesses, public entities, and the intellectual asset base, so universities, research centers. So basically, the essential part when it comes to a smart specialization is that you guys in this audience, you are the experts. It's not Maria or Aravan here at the Stockholm Public County Board. You know, we need your expertise to develop an effective strategy. It's meant to be a bottom-up process driven by you, the stakeholders, and that's why it's essential that you become involved in developing the strategy. So far in Europe, there's over 120 smart specializations which have been developed, and there's around 67 billion euros worth of money available to support the development and implementation of these strategies through the European structural funds. Also, probably national level and regional level funding is also available. And the importance of this to the European Commission is most manifestly seen in the fact that they made smart specialization an ex-ante conditionality when it comes to putting in European funding applications. So basically, if you're a business or you're an industry, if you want to get access to European funding, you need to show that you're aware of what the regional strategy is, In what better way of knowing what the regional strategy is than being involved in its development? And that's why it's essential that you get involved in this process. So the smart specialization process, it's quite clear and quite common and straightforward. So most of those 120 regions which have developed a strategy, I would say there's probably 4 key stages in the process of developing a regional smart specialization strategy. The first one is probably quite essential, is that public authorities need to create a framework for bringing stakeholders together. So essentially this meeting today is the first in hopefully a number of meetings which will be developed over the course of the coming months. So today we're trying to get you interested in the concept, interested in developing the strategy. But over the course of the next few months there'll be hopefully a number of seminars, conferences, workshops, bilateral meetings held between businesses, the public authority. And not only that, but interaction between all the key stakeholders involved. So you can go through what the academics refer to as a process of entrepreneurial discovery. Now that's just a pretentious way of saying let's design a smart specialization strategy. So this is meant to be, as I said, it's meant to be a bottom-up evidence-based approach, and it's meant to involve all the key stakeholders in the process. But there are certain problems so far when it comes to regions developing smart specialization strategies. In the Commission have basically said there's 2 key problems when it comes to this. The first one is many regions are simply plagiarizing from the national strategy. The second key problem is that most regions are just coming up with very broad thematic areas. And that kind of defeats the point of smart specialization. The whole point of smart specialization is, yes, it is very important to start the process by identifying these broad key thematic areas, but you've got to do more than that. It's about really delving in and focusing into these areas to identify products, services, potential research, which you can take to the market by interacting together. Now that's the essential part of the process, and that's what the Stockholm region really needs to focus on. Once you've developed the key ideas for the strategy, the next stage in the process is to develop an implementation action plan. Now, for most regions, this involves developing some form of policy instrument which can bring stakeholders together around the key policies which have been identified within the overall strategy. Now, for example, in Stockholm, we already have the Stockholm model. Now, this is an instrument which can be developed further. And I think one of the key things here is that as things currently stand, Stockholm doesn't have a regional smart specialization strategy. So the Stockholm model is fine as an overall instrument, but it needs to be tailored and focused to the strategies which have been developed through the entrepreneurial discovery process. Now, the final part of the process is there needs to be a monitoring and evaluation process to see if this regional smart specialization strategy which has been developed, is it working? So every region has to develop some kind of indicators to measure success. And these could be, have you increased access to funding in the region? Have you developed more spin-off businesses? Have you created more jobs? Are there more patents? Is more research getting into the market? These things need to be assessed to measure the success of the strategy which has been developed. So, at the minute, Nordregio, who I'm working with my colleague Jukka, we've become involved in a project called the Interreg Europe Higher project. In the central part of that project is to work with the Stockholm County Board to develop a new strategy and implement a new smart specialization strategy for the Stockholm region. And to facilitate interaction between key stakeholders in the region to help develop this strategy. So hopefully using funds from this project, we're going to hold a number of meetings, hold a number of seminars, which we'd all like you guys here to participate in to help us develop this strategy. So the project has 2 main aims, really. The first is to kind of cultivate and facilitate this entrepreneurial discovery process to help identify regional innovation strengths, which can bring regional innovation competitiveness forward. The second part of it is to develop innovative public-private partnerships in the Stockholm region, which can help enhance public and private investment in regional innovation policy. Now, obviously, as I said before, we have the Stockholm model as a basis for this process, but it does need to be developed, and it does need to be much more closely related to the strategy, which will hopefully be developed with you involved in the process. Finally, the end product is, of course, to develop what we're going to call an action plan, which is a way of implementing the process which has been developed. So, why should Stockholm region develop a smart specialisation strategy? The first is that it's vitally important to encourage the development of dynamic public-private partnerships. This is between the intellectual asset base, the universities and the industries and the businesses in Stockholm. Now, to give you an example of a region in Sweden which has been really quite successful in that, you can look at the Värmland region. Now, a lot of people say that you can't compare Värmland to Stockholm. Of course, in many ways you can't. Stockholm's a much bigger region. Värmland is kind of focused around one key industry, forestry. It's probably that doesn't have as many thematic areas. But the point is, they've been extremely successful in developing a smart specialization process because the stakeholders have agreed that collaboration is the best way forward. In the same principle applies here in Stockholm. Yes, you might have more bigger companies, you might have broader thematic areas, but the same principle apply. If you want to be successful, you need to collaborate. And I think the success of Värmland can be most clearly seen recently in that they've just won the Värmväxt award, which basically gives them 10 years of funding to develop innovation projects. Now, there's no reason why Stockholm could not be as successful, but it requires stakeholders to come together and work with each other to make sure that the policies which have been devised in the strategy are implemented effectively. The second key area is that the region can develop, the region can identify niche areas of research and innovation. So this means that every company can start looking into their own areas of specialization to potentially develop new products and services which can be taken to the market. In doing so, making Stockholm much more competitive on a global scale. The third reason Stockholm should get involved is that smart specialization offers a chance to kind of really get in there and assess what are the key societal challenges in the Stockholm region and where do the skill gaps lie in the region. I mean, I think when it comes to the European Commission, one of the big buzzwords at the minute is this issue of coming up with smart and sustainable policies. Now, I think that's something you have to carefully think about when it comes to the ideas which you develop within your smart specialization strategy. The third reason is, quite simply, you want to avoid duplication and fragmentation of resources. I mean, one of the big issues when it comes to innovation policy is obviously that companies don't have the time and resources to go it alone. So that's why it is vitally important that you come together around this smart specialization policy to make it possible to achieve commercialization. Another big reason is that you basically want to increase the number of investments in research. When we're at a time and a period where a lot of countries are struggling financially due to various financial issues, so innovation policies need to become much more focused, much more direct. In basically, if you can achieve that, if you can bring stakeholders together around key ideas, then you're going to be more efficient with the funds which are available. Finally, I think it's very good to support the devolution of research, of innovation policy to the regional level. This is what the Commission are trying to achieve through smart specialization. They don't want national governments making policies on behalf of regions. So the devolution to the regional level is absolutely essential, and I think regional stakeholders should be active in supporting this process. So when it comes to smart specialization, the big key question is, why should you get involved? Why should your business get involved? And I think first and foremost is you should participate in this process because this is your opportunity to influence the direction of policy. There's no point sitting in your offices complaining that they're not focusing in the right areas. This is your opportunity to get in touch with the public authorities here in Stockholm and say, look, we think these are the key areas in Stockholm. These are the things that we should focus on. As I said earlier, you guys are the experts here. In Aravan, Maria, Karina, they need your input here to create an effective strategy. I think the second key reason is, on a personal level, this gives your businesses, your universities, the opportunity to identify new areas of innovation. the development of a smart specialization strategy brings stakeholders together. It's a knowledge and learning process which goes on here. So you might be introduced to new areas of policy which you actually haven't thought of. This provides the potential for you to develop new products and services which can make your business grow and become more competitive. Thirdly, I think it's vital, if you want to get access to European funding, you need to establish a critical mass. The bottom line is, when it comes to European funding, and this will start becoming more significant at national level as well, if you want to get access to this money, you need to show that that you have that you work collaborating with the key stakeholders in the process. That's particularly the case when it comes to the European funding. And also, I think it's good for your business image if you are seen to be collaborating, particularly big industries. There's this culture of corporate social responsibility, and I think if you're seen to be working closely with societal groups, it makes things look a little bit better. Thirdly, I think it's good for you to highlight where skills gaps are lacking within your business. So if new areas of innovation are developing that you're not aware about, you're going to maybe want to hire new people to come in and help your business develop in those new areas. And I think that's one of the key things from the Värmland area that we've learned here, is that universities are working very closely with businesses when it comes to developing university courses which suit business needs. So you can go to the local universities in the Stockholm region and say, look, this is what we need here. We need people with skills in this area because these are the new policy areas which people are moving into, and we don't have those skills available. I think another key point is that by working on smart specialization, there is the potential to improve your own awareness and access to new markets and global value chains. I mean, that's particularly the case if your business does get involved in European projects. You're going to be working with actors on a European scale, maybe some countries from outside of Europe, and this is going to potentially take your products and services into new markets and help expand and grow your businesses. I think it's also really important to participate in the promotional of regional economic growth. I mean, the bottom line is, if Stockholm is a strong and prosperous region, all businesses, universities are going to benefit. So it's important to be involved in the process. Finally, and most importantly, if you're going to enhance access to European and national funding opportunities, you need to be involved in creating the strategy. If you've been involved in making this strategy, when you're making your applications for funding, you're going to be absolutely aware where the key areas are, how your application relates to the smart specialization strategy. In doing that and in building the collaborations with other businesses in the Stockholm region, you're going to massively increase your chances of getting access to funding. So they're just some thoughts I've had on this, and I hope it's been a little bit helpful to you and in kind of developing your understanding of smart specialization and why it's relevant to your business. And maybe I'm just kind of sentimental because it's Christmas and it's that time of year, but hopefully you can come together, start collaborating, and really work together with the public authorities here to make Stockholm really grow and use its potential to be a strong region for innovation growth. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jon. Thank you, Jon. I think that's... Hello? Do you hear me? Okay. It's very interesting to hear more about these things, and I think we can have a lot of discussions on these topics. I think maybe we should save the questions until later. At the end, we can have some up and have a possibility to some questions. So I think maybe we should let Jukka and Kaina to give their presentations, and we can sum up and see if there's anything we have to clarify a little bit more before we continue. So please, Jukka. You can take this one. I think it's easy with this. That's better. So, okay, please.
I can start. No, now it works nicely. So, good morning. Smart specialization in the Nordic region. Let's have a short tour around Nordic countries and compare a bit what Swedes are doing compared to other Nordic countries and regions. And I will open up with this nice figure because it's Christmas week also. Some of you dreaming of White Christmas. This is from last year. You remember the November one day 37 centimeters of snow in Stockholm. Our office Nordregio, we are located at Skeppsholmen, and those of you who were in Stockholm 1 year ago in November, you remember that one day, and I took the photo, so we can have at least White November here. And this is where we are located, 37 people working, 30 researchers from all the Nordic countries, and some external guests like John coming from outside Nordic countries too. We call us a leading Nordic research institute within the broad field of regional development. So at least we say that we are experts on European and international regional development. And why we now invest in this smart specialization is because of the 4-year program that Nordic Council of Ministers has started. Nordic Council of Ministers is behind Nordregio work, and we can say that we who come from the Nordic countries, we are co-owners of Nordregio because it's part of the Nordic Council of Ministers umbrella. 1/3 of the finance comes from Nordic Council of Ministers, 2/3 from external sources. And we have now launched Nordic thematic groups for the 4-year period, and one of the groups is now this innovative and resilient regions, including regional smart specialization strategies in the Nordics. During the 4-year period, we try to find out, is there a Nordic concept of smart specialization, or is it just some top-down that we should swallow from the Brussels, or can we do something? Do we have a Nordic flavor there? And I think that is of interest for all the Nordic countries. We also have to remember that the Nordic countries have also Norway and Iceland out of European Union, which also take a stake, and they are interested in the development of smart specialization. Why regional smart specialization strategies? The first point was already referred by John, ex ante condition. You have to provide a strategy in order to receive the EU funds, the EU structural funds. So that plays a certain role. It's always good to write the document in order to receive funds. But beyond that, I think it's also a new innovative instrument or tool to regional development, with a possibility to relevant international benchmarking. So it's not only that we write these isolated and receive the funds. Maybe it was like that in the previous years. Now Commission wants also that regions are more and more involved and more interacting with each other. This is part of this international benchmarking. And number 3, it's also a very pragmatic way of regional branding, and some regions, I will show some examples, are very good in this regional branding. They show their smart specialization areas or niches, and they go out to Europe and they use it as part of marketing regional branding. Why not? Because they have to do it in any case. They use it for regional branding and even marketing. Now the smart specialization concept has been out about 5 years, and the program period 2014-2020 is now on its way. And some of you may have attended this midterm review of smart specialization. It was last year, September, in Seville, Spain. And I think it was I was there too, and I put down some comments there because the academic comment from Phil McCann smart specialization could be seen as narrative to get people thinking differently. So we are not only repeating the old programs, we want to give they have something new to provide, and that is also one shaking element of smart specialization, so that we just don't continue our old programs. And then I took the quote from director of Regional Council of Lapland, Mika Riipi. And the quote, he was giving a practitioner's viewpoint presentation there from Regional Council of Lapland in Finland. He said, how to give evidence to the general public about that what we do with smart specialization really counts. In our region, smart specialization as such does not have any value. It is the results that count. And I think this is something which also, at least I was listening very carefully, because we sometimes think that we have to follow because it comes from Brussels, and then we get nervous, at least in some Nordic countries, at least in Sweden and Finland, I know. And we want to have our own flavor. We want to think first ourselves and then think how does that fit in. And that was music to my ears too. So he said it's the results that count. So we are not following smart specialization because we must, but because it's a good idea, because we think that there are results to be gained. Then I think we already got a nice introduction of what is smart specialization, and maybe it makes it more clear if we also say what is it not, how to fail with the regional smart specialization. And I can promise you that some regions in Europe are failing with smart specialization at the moment. First point, it was already mentioned by John. You just present grand themes: biotechnology and environment, health. The areas are so broad that they cover all the activity in the world, at least in our country, and it's not specialization, it's smart generalization, or I'm not sure if it's smart. The second point, you just present the strong points of public research. This is sometimes these European Commission programs are too much dominated by research only. Research is a vital, essential part, but as John referred, it should be a joint discovery process where to invest our funds and research and businesses. So it should not be only left to research or only to bureaucrats, as they say. We should get everybody on board, also companies in one way or another. And the third one, you may see these programs called smart specialization, and then you compare with the 5-year-old programs, and you see that they have only changed the cover page. They are simply recycling cluster programs, and that's not the idea. Clusters are very close to smart specialization, but we should take the step further, and we should not only recycle the old cluster programs. And the fundamental cause of failure, the list comes from Foray, who has coined this smart specialization concept for the European Commission. The fundamental cause of failure, presenting what already exists without taking into account the importance of entrepreneurial discovery. We should together discover the new avenues, the new ways of doing business, research, and the joint activities in our regions. Then I promised to say something about Nordic countries and smart specialization. And Commission has launched a European smart specialization platform. That means that there are more than 100 regions who have prepared their smart specialization strategies. They have registered themselves into this system, and they are actively participating in these international peer review events also. And I just went through the smart specialization platform as of December 2017 and had a look which countries are most active in being part of this European smart specialization platform. And I found 11 regions from Stockholm. You can read from Dalarna still to Västra Götalands län, and it covers many regions, not all. Then if we go to Finland, Finland is even more active. almost all regions in Finland have said we want to join this smart specialization platform. Then surprisingly you find 5 regions from Norway, even though they don't have to produce smart specialization strategy. And I think that's encouraging. They don't have to produce smart specialization strategies. Still 5 Norwegian regions want to be part of this European family. So I think there must be some real motivation, because it's not only following the rules in order to receive funds. Denmark, I would call it black sheep in this family. Only 2 regions from Jylland part, so they don't buy this idea as well as the other European Nordic countries. So at least it tells you something about the activity of smart specialization from the regions in the Nordics. And then I did another exercise to check how is Sweden dealing with smart specialization when we go to national level. And I took the document, some of you may have written it, some of you may have read it, but I did the simple experiment. How many times was smart specialization mentioned in this Regeringskansliets en nationell strategi för hållbar regional tillväxt och attraktionskraft document? And I found 3 pages where it was mentioned, and I just show them quickly so that you have an idea in which contexts does the Regeringskansliet mention the smart specialization as a national strategy. The first one, genom smart specialisering kan regionala innovationsmiljöer utvecklas. The second point, regionala aktörer tar utgångspunkt i identifierade styrkeområden, viktigt att regionerna arbetar strategiskt med smart specialisering. And the third, international erfarenhetsutbyte med EU-kommissionens S3-plattform i Sevilla. So those points did the Regeringskansliet take up, and we are doing this analysis now with the other Nordic countries too, to find out what is happening between regions and the national level, and that work is going on now at Nordregio. Then John already provocated you a bit and said that Värmland is our favorite case, and he said that maybe we should not compare Värmland with Stockholm, and of course I do it, and to give you some wake up. Now, in fact, I show you some elements which I find Värmland as a good example. And now I start with visibility, regional branding, and smart specialization, this combination. If you look at the lower part of this slide, some of you have visited California and you recognize the letters from another place in the world. And this is where I first time met Paper Province and Karlstad and Värmland with these letters. And I had not heard about it. It was 2013. And it really works. After that I remember it, and now it's in my slides too, the Paper Province. So at least they can do something with the marketing. And the other one is this smart specialization strategy. It does not always have to be boring, same format, 130 pages, nobody reads document. It can also be this 35 pages with a nice cover page, and maybe also giving some ideas for issues like gender. And I think it's a well written, clear document, and worth checking. So as one example, and of course produced in Swedish and English, so that it's available for international audience too. And to show you one example of one page of that strategy, it's this top part of this slide. Some of you who work with the styrkeområden, you find these styrkeområden inbuilt in this slide, but now they have restructured, reorganized these strength branches, and now the figure is in fact a correlation between areas of strength in business and smart specialization. I think this linkage is needed for people who have worked only with the styrkeområden to find that actually we are not talking something totally remote from our previous work, but we add up and combine things, and this is how Värmland got through with this document. And the lower part is also of interest for those of you who work with the academics or research. They just have now opened Academy for Smart Specialization, including good university-related research themes, and a group of 10 professors joining this program. I think this is something everybody could learn something about, this Academy of Smart Specialization, combining smart specialization and university work going on in Karlstad. And to visit two more Nordic regions, Lapland's Arctic Specialization Program is something that is written in 2013, and I took it to this presentation to emphasize that the work does not end when you have this document. It starts when you have this document. And so many regions write this document and then they say, pooh, now it's over, we've done the document. But Lapland actually started when the document was completed, and now there is a big implementation program going on. Of course, they have quite a lot of structural funds to deliver. There is a good motivation, but still it's Arctic Specialization Program plus implementation program. The other one is the example which I already mentioned, Norway, and this is from a region of Nordland. They don't have to provide a smart specialization strategy in order to receive funds, yet they did. And this is part of our Nordregio study too, why they did it and what do they get out even though they are outside European Union. And to conclude my presentation, you could have the idea, this is a theoretical exercise, this is for public sector. Does this have anything to do with businesses in Stockholm region, or what's going on here? I have this example from the border between Finland and Sweden, up there, Tornio, Haparanda, and Kemi-Tornio region, there 25 kilometers from the Swedish border. They have a big process industry there. About 7% of the exports in Finland coming from this region. It's a big process industry concentrate. And circular economy, and to be more precise, industrial symbiosis, is part of their new strategy to get the maximum out of the circular economy with this process industry up there. And now it's part of the smart specialization implementation in Lapland region in Finland. It's called the Arctic Industry and Circular Economy Smart Cluster. And what they have done, for example, they have done an inventory of regional industrial side streams. So they know where are the side streams in the region, and even they have a summary list available to, for example, foreign companies considering location in the region. So invest in program for this region includes also these side streams, so that after the general PowerPoints they can go immediately to these side streams and the things of attractiveness from concrete terms. And final point there, you may ask, what does this remote region in North Finland do with capital regions or Stockholm? Or I think the last point is worth mentioning. Sitra is the big Finnish innovation fund, and they have now started a national initiative together with this region. So Sitra, Helsinki region as the node in the capital region, and this northern Finland industrial symbiosis part as a huge living lab, and now they work together as a national initiative to build up industrial symbiosis business models. So there are concrete national models and business habits coming out of this smart specialization regional exercise. Thank you. Now you see the Skeppsholmen without snow.
Does it work? Yeah, I think so.
Is it okay?
Yes, now it is okay. 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 Thank you so much. It is pleasure to be here in Stockholm. This is first time here at the House of the Regions, of Stockholm Länsstyrelsen. But it's not the first time, of course, at the Stockholm or Sweden. My background, a little bit about my background. I used to work nearly 15 years with the Nokia Corporation, and of course, I don't know, here anybody from Ericsson in the audience, but the fellow, Ericsson friends, we worked, heavily together, and also, in the digital things in Skåne and so forth. So pleasure to be here. Now I'm actually a professor at the Aalto University of the Corporate Entrepreneurship and Innovation. But in addition, I have been 2.5 years at the European Union, at the Committee of the Region, at the cabinet of the former president. The president was the Finnish Markku Markkula. He has been very active on this smart specialization and regional innovation ecosystems, and I will tell a little bit about that. Markku is, in addition he's now the vice president of the European Committee of the Regions, and I will tell you a bit about the Committee of the Regions, because I don't know how much do you know about the Committee of the Regions. This Committee of the Regions is official assembly of cities and regions of all Europe, and it has 350 members and 350 alternate members, so it means 700 from all over the Europe. And it is politicians, locally elected politicians, so it is a bottom-up assembly. And thinking about the other, European Commission and Parliament and so forth. So those are a little bit like coming top down, and these committees are coming from bottom up. How actually these committees are working, they don't have the decision power, but they have the power to and also the responsibility to give the opinion of all of the issues that are actually related to cities and regions. And if we're thinking of cities and regions, so 70% or 75% of the issues are related to cities and regions, and especially this smart specialization. So I tell a bit, of the experiences of Helsinki regions, but in addition also those issues that has been involved at the Brussels, at the Committee of the Regions and European Commission. And I really want to encourage that, I think so that in this presentation I have 3 topics that I want to discuss with you. The first, of course, what already John and Jukka mentioned, the importance of this smart specialization and value creation. And how does it actually lead to the growth? The second point is that we need all stakeholders locally to be involved. Universities, of course, but the businesses as well. And the third point is that we need the Nordic collaboration. We need to collaborate together, especially thinking about, Helsinki, Stockholm, but Oslo, Copenhagen, and Baltics. But we need also the other, actually, regions to be involved, depending on the topic, especially on those activities that was also mentioned before. Aalto University, where I'm coming from, it's important now. It is the topic of smart specialization. So Aalto University used to be one of the stakeholders to create the Helsinki region smart specialization strategy a couple of years ago. So of course there were all of the stakeholders, but I mean Aalto as a university was essential. Thinking about Aalto University, Aalto was actually formed with the 3 schools. 2010, the Helsinki University of Technology, Helsinki University of Economics, and then Helsinki University of Arts. They were merging together, and this is actually the picture which shows now. It was done 2016, and it actually highlights the key research arenas and also the arenas to create actually new kind of the businesses. This university used to be one of the key drivers to create actually businesses. If we look our chemical industry, if we look our telecom industry, if we look our forestry, if we look at machinery, the university has been always involved. And in addition of involved, there has been also the creation. If we think, for example, chemical industry, Kemira and so forth, those are actually built on with the university. There is actually the areas like ICT and digitalization, global businesses, advanced energy, and then of course arts and design, material resources, health and well-being, and also human-centered living environments. Those are actually the cornerstones. So at the Aalto we have everything else except medical. Medical is extremely important. Yeah, Helsinki University has the medical university, which also for if we're looking at the value creation, it is extremely essential university. Then thinking about this smart specialization and taking all actually these stakeholders with. We are talking today, early on we talked about clusters. Now we are talking about the regional innovation ecosystems. And what these regional innovation ecosystems are, they are place-based innovation ecosystem, which actually have a model to collaborate in a certain way in the area where it is actually involved. We actually wrote this book. I will soon actually let this book to go you around, and you can also download that. There is, you will get the slides, so there is the link to download. We asked our members, which are those 350 politicians in the assembly. Markku Markkula, actually, when he was the president until last July, he asked that, dear fellow politicians, let's make a process. This is not the book. This was a process. Let's tell the stories and go that forward with your stories. How are you pioneering? How do you actually form your place-based, these regional innovation ecosystems? And that was first time when actually with the politicians this kind of process has taken. Then there was coming 30 politicians that we want to be involved. The timeline was very quick, and we were so happy to get, in this book, we have the stories of Amsterdam, Innovation Capital 2016, we have Basque country, we have Berlin, we have Bratislava, we have lots of, Poland regions, we have it, Helsinki, Espoo, we have Glasgow, Lisbon, Manchester, Santander, Sofia, Styria, and so forth. And this was actually because it was a quick process, so we did not actually, we asked them who will come, and those who came, we took about. We had a sort of a frame for the storytelling and their responsibility. Politicians together with their stakeholders, they told their stories. And this has been extremely, valuable. We have given this to the high level, people and everybody actually at the Brussels. And this was the first step actually to start. Now it is the next step, and the next step is to describe what does it really mean for us, this collaboration and partnering together. If I give it to you. Then the next step was that was done with our politicians. I was, by the way, the main editor, so therefore, actually, it was very interesting story. To work on those with all of those, cities and regions. The next step was, that this Jukka mentioned this joint research center. We are collaborating and heavily with the Joint Research Center, and you are welcome. If you have anything, actually, Stockholm region, to work, of course, directly. But if we could be as a help, we are actually on your disposal on these issues. The Joint Research Center is writing, lots of this policy report. This policy report it is about the place-based innovation ecosystems, which they are developing still further. And they took it, Espoo Innovation Garden Aalto University as one of the examples. And what they tell in their main findings, and they are, by the way, now actually, because this was the first thing, they are willing to do reports from, for example, from Stockholm. Riga was already, mentioning that they want to be. Tallinn was also, heavily involving that they also want to be. Aarhus from Denmark. So I really encourage, that please, be part. But what they are mentioning, it is in the main findings, that the ecosystem, that they are referring to Espoo innovation ecosystems. But I think so that the Stockholm is pretty much similar in many of these issues. There are similarities and there are differences, and differences makes actually then the value, of course. But what we have we have built a strong knowledge base. And there is the entrepreneurial spirit and participation of all actors, and also co-creation with the citizens and users is increasingly being cultivated through open innovation methodologies and open innovation spaces, and so forth. Those are probably some of those that I want to mention. This is as well available on the web and on the link. Then, EU overall, of course, for this purpose, it is providing a lot of actually support and instruments. Here are a couple of, instruments mentioned, and these are also, of course, relevant for the smart specialization. This was when the book was launched a year ago at the Bratislava. Bratislava was actually, Slovakia was having the EU presidency, and here are actually the mayor of Bratislava and Commissioner Bulc, and also the head of the region, president of the region at Bratislava. And here the key issues was this networking, catalyzing open innovation, entrepreneurial mindset, experimentation and implementation, and European value added. This is actually something, which we actually in Nordics needs to remember when we are doing this, smart specialization and collaborating, that of course, in the first step is to think about how can we create value locally, because that's the key thing. But then when we go to Brussels, we need to present that what kind of European value added it can create. And of course, the Nordics, can create a lot of value because we are similar in mind. Thinking about Denmark, all the Nordics having this agile, flexible. Way of working, which is highly actually appreciated at Brussels. So that's probably something that for me was the biggest actually takeover, that how much and how differently we are really working than the Central Europe overall. So they can learn a lot from our way. I mean, that agility that, I mean, we don't have the hierarchies and we work actually straightforward. If we actually have a plan, we discuss openly and so forth, which are actually, I mean, everyday, I mean, issues that we really work on. That's like a culture. Couple of slides about actually this business and public sector productivity. So if we are looking at first the business sector, I mean, there's of course the technological change, I mean, gives the I mean the possibility to the productivity and but actually there's still in the European businesses potential to perform better. Therefore, it is essential that actually we look at how can we collaborate, how can we create the value. But if we are looking the public sector, the issue is even more, I mean, deeper. So public sector goes behind, and but there's, I mean, lots of opportunities for the Scandinavians. So I mean, concentrating and focusing on public sector innovations. How these, I mean, digital things and climate change can affect to the productivity and also the innovations. Last, I mean, July, this smart specialization was highlighted by Jean-Claude Juncker, 18th of July, on the communication that we need to strengthen innovation in Europe's regions, and he was calling for the partnerships. So it's extremely, I mean, essential that we as the Nordics show the way and are partnering together. There was a first pilot call, couple of months ago, and there's 40 proposals for those first partnerships. But there is actually lots of, I mean, still room for creating the partnerships in this context in the future. Then going to the Helsinki region, Jukka mentioned that Lapland and also the Swedish, I mean, these regions. But if we at first look at the Lapland, Helsinki region and Lapland are actually, I mean, collaborating a lot. And Lapland is very active also in the European Union. Much more active than, for example, Helsinki. So that's also something, I mean, you to think. I mean, it does not matter where you are coming. If you are present, I mean, then you actually, I mean, get the value. For example, Lapland, I mean, they have been actually kind of flagship for the GRC, what Jukka mentioned earlier as well. And they actually get the place in every conferences to speak. At the European Union, you need to be present. And that's also learning for us, I mean, Helsinki and Espoo, that, I mean, they need to be present. Actually, when I'm actually at the European Committee of the Regions, I cannot actually, I mean, promote Helsinki and Espoo because I need to promote you, actually, everybody, every region. But of course, I mean, they are asking the Nordics examples. And that's lovely, and those, I mean, we want to tell. But if we're looking this Helsinki region smart specialization strategy, so this was actually developed a couple of years ago. I mean, was it 2013 or 14, first time? And this is actually the second round now, I mean, on this strategy. So it was a bit more complicated now. It is a bit actually, I mean, kind of simplified, and here are actually, I mean, the key issues are, I mean, the activities here: this urban clean tech, human health tech, digitalizing industry and citizen city, and the activities which are actually there going implementation and so forth. Of course, there are this, I mean, the spearhead industries and these enabling knowledge and technologies. Therewith, I mean, this all is actually somehow actually creating this regional innovation ecosystem. But this is as well, this is a bit high level still. on the presentation. The key is the action plans and implementation here, and in this implementation, really actually that what kind of collaboration can be done in the Nordics and Baltics. One initiative which is related is the 6 city strategy in Finland, and there was a flagship 6 Aika, which is this 80 million investment for 2014 to 2020. This is structural funds, because we have the similar situation and you have it, that the Helsinki region, we don't have the structural funds. We have only a little bit, but actually then the national government actually made this initiative that they offered for the 6 biggest cities, the 80 million, and of course Helsinki region is having 3 big cities, so Helsinki, Espoo and Vantaa, and then actually Oulu, Tampere and Turku are those the next ones, and this was a coordinated implementation for the networking and what these cities can do together, and how and what kind of activities create related to this. Was also related to smart specialization, because many of these issues were in the smart cities, open digital platforms and so forth actually going on, and there is lots of learning. So needed this local collaboration and needed to create the European partnerships. These as well, these 6 cities, they have partnered within this program with the Europeans. We need a systematic collaboration between the cities and companies. This is still actually thinking about Finland, Helsinki region could be actually stronger. It is difficult, if we are really honest, to collaborate with the companies. And for example, this smart and clean, that we have it there, actually that's something that's now actually going on. Pretty much with the also the activities with the companies, and of course the bench learning and platforms are important. There. This is the initiative. John mentioned this high program that you are here at the Stockholm developing the smart specialization strategies and implementation plans at the Stockholm regions. We have it another program which is called Baltic Sea Region Smart Up, which I'm heading from Aalto University. So we have 9 countries involved in the Baltic Sea regions. Actually, we have all other countries than Sweden, but we have tried so much to take the Sweden with. I need to say that I have spent even weeks to have the Swedes with. We were working with Skåne, and actually what's happening and so forth. So, but anyway, Sweden is with. But I don't know. Are you at the partner? We have actually 15 partners, 25 associate partners, and because we want to actually to look the similar issue on these Baltic Sea regions. There the key idea is that we look these 9 countries, these different regions. In couple of countries there are even couple of regions with their smart specialization strategies. If they need a revision, it's done the revision there, and we have a peer-to-peer review as well, actually coming at Aarhus. We have Innovation Camp, where you are, by the way, welcome in 19th to 21st of March at Aarhus, the second one that have the smart specialization strategy in Denmark. And there actually we are pretty much focusing on this challenge. So revisiting these smart specialization strategies, have the peer-to-peer review, and as well as actually looking how much this engagement via innovation camps, how much that can create the co-create the value, and in which part can it create value. So where do we need this engagement? we have an, I mean, kind of hypothesis that this, I mean, engagement creates value. You need to know, I mean, the parties, and then we are also actually, I mean, thinking that then, I mean, in these actions, which are this last one, this challenge 3, that because, I mean, we already know that actually quite many regions have the smart city kind of the certain initiatives, meaning the digitalization, energy, and so forth, smart and clean initiatives, and climate change, circular economy, and e-health things. So can we there create kind of Nordics Baltics value in collaboration? It's, I mean, still, I mean, we don't know yet what kind of value, and honestly speaking, this is the biggest issue now in the European Union. What does it mean, this Nordics, I mean, Baltics, and macro-regional strategies? Does it mean anything? And if so, I mean, what does it mean? What are the values? And also those others, I mean, folks, the Danube and Alpines and so forth, they are very eager to learn. And this is something, I mean, which we can actually, I mean, discuss. I'm happy to discuss together, happy to create together if you are available to develop further. At the meantime, that you are developing your own strategies. This is just, I mean, showing. I was talking, I mean, this, I mean, Helsinki region and Espoo. So this is, I mean. Helsinki city is here and Espoo is here, so I mean, and here it is, I mean, the health capital, Meilahti health capital area in this part of the city. Engagement innovation camps, we have used that, and now we will use on that Baltic Sea region Smart Up project. This is also mentioned, by the way. I mean, the Joint Research Center is doing, I mean, it's just coming out from the press communication about all of the instruments. So this innovation camps is one of their instruments that they have now included to their portfolio, and that because this is for the engagement. And this is one example that what we did it a couple of years ago with the Espoo metro corridor, where we developed and some of the concepts together with the businesses and universities and so forth. And then the initiative, which is, I mean, related, of course, the youth, most important. Youth to be included to smart specialization, and this is, I mean, the SLUS, which you probably know well, but this is totally, I mean, students' initiative. They take the risk. They run. They manage. They do everything. And I can honestly say that nobody from the, I mean, university administration or so forth have been involved in the early stages when this was developed. This, I mean, startup sauna. It started with a startup sauna, and then it became, I mean, also it included the slush event. And it basically, the idea is that the students, if they have an idea, or even if they don't have an idea, they can go and hang around in the startup sauna and get involved in the idea or business kind of the things that the other students or the business people have invented. But now actually, I mean, and especially if they have a business idea, they go there, they team it up. There's 70 to 100 business, I mean, leaders. Earlier, our best business leaders are free of charge, mentoring, coaching, supporting actually the students. They said that they don't do that free of charge to anybody else than for the students. So I mean, students get best people. I mean, they get best team it up, and those who have been head of the, I mean, startup sauna and slush, I mean, nowadays they are actually the CEOs of startups in Finland or globally. Of course, this works actually very close collaboration. Of course, the Nordics, but then the Silicon Valley and so forth. And it was amazing. There was 20,000 participants. Just, I mean, couple of weeks ago, and next, slush will be next year in the beginning of December. I had it actually because what I have studied, quite deeply about the startups and businesses, but I probably skip that. You can get the slides because otherwise, I want to leave the room for the discussion. So I will go, down and close it up because I have a couple of these. Slides, but I go. You just remember that there is no smart regions if they are not businesses with. So this is actually, something that we developed a couple of years ago, back 2014, I think, and it was basically when we were thinking about this digital services economy and smart regions and smart cities, which is now actually developed, by the way, by the Six Aika, that initiative. So that actually, we need, there's numerous projects and so forth. We need actually to a little bit go a higher level, look these together, and then think about it. What does it really mean for as a whole? And also in many cities and regions, many cities are so small so that they cannot actually, to do. For example, if we look the digital things, it is better to actually to copy and share than just do everything by yourself. So this was actually, about, done for that regions, and there is actually this digitality actually on the kind of the basis. So digital by default and an entrepreneurial thing actually, as a whole. But here then actually, if we are thinking about the smart region, it needs to be sustainable. It needs to be healthy, and there needs to be actually the thing, kind of this realistic things as a topic, because all of these are just helping. There needs to be as a vision, sustainable things, and this is now actually thinking about Helsinki region, the newest thing. So Helsinki regions wants to be carbon neutral by 20 to 35, and the issue is that wants to go for the partnerships on that. And this is the new Helsinki region. Uusimaa is the Helsinki region program 2.0 just published. There's vision and the strategic areas, but this is probably the biggest one now actually what we want to promote. Thank you so much. This is actually all that I have it now, but I probably Maria will lead to the discussion. Okay.
Hello. Hello. Is it working now? Yeah. Okay. Fine. Yeah, I would like to have our speakers here because I think now it's time for you to be able, if you want to have some comments or questions, you can have. You're free to be to post them to one or all of our presenters. And I think it's been a very interesting presentation, and I think there is a lot to learn from other regions, and also to get started with this initiative. We have had a presentation on the usefulness of smart specialization strategies, not only for public sectors, but also for academia, for businesses, and also for the civil society to solve many of these important challenges that we are facing. So I know that there were some Arivan, do you have the microphone? Yeah.
Hello, thank you. My name is Gunnar Landgren. I'm with KTH, and I've been working in this business for about 2 decades or so. So the first thing here I think is to understand is if this is something for Stockholm. at all to bother about. And you know, Stockholm is a capital, and most of the examples that we heard of are from, you know, less populated areas of the Nordic countries. So I would like to know if you can give any examples of where there have been any significant EU support given to any capital or other, you know, larger metropolitan area in this context. I mean, it may be good for Stockholm to have a strategy anyway, but in this specific EU context. And the other one is the observation that maybe the average number of inhabitants per strategy is below 500,000, something like that, if you do the maths. I mean, all the 5 Nordic ones in Sweden have less than half of the Stockholm region number of inhabitants. So the question is, can one think of subdividing the Stockholm area? Can we have 4 different specializations in different regions or different themes or whatever? Thank you.
Yes, maybe it's working. Okay, good. Usually I'm shouting, so I don't pay attention. So to your first question, there is it for only for this less developed regions, this smart specialization. This is an exceptional event because usually I've been giving presentations in less developed regions where I have exactly the same question. This is for capital regions, but is there any use of smart specialization in less developed regions? So the same question, but from the opposite direction, keeps coming. And now the Europe is trying to find, yes, it's good, but not for our type of region. So big cities complaining that it's for others, and small cities saying this is meant for university-related capital regions. The concept is fresh and it's new, and it started in practice in 2015 when people started to allocate funds, and that makes it difficult to give statistical comparison. But I think this case of Helsinki region, Sitra going in cooperation with this Living Lab in North Finland, I think we see more and more, and I think Taina also confirmed that this is the model we find, that capital regions together with less developed regions, well, for obvious reasons, because they have also indirect access to structural funds. We are not naive, so that is one of the regions. One of its knowledge transfer, and yet another is to access to natural resources. So there are these dipoles and combinations that people are looking after. And the other comment is that all the major capitals need to take position regarding smart specialization, because, for example, for Horizon programs, there are more rule than exception that you have to take into account and demonstrate that you are seriously into the smart specialization concept too. And then it's not about structural funds, it's the mainstream. Maybe Taina can even confirm, you come from the university.
I fully agree what Jukka said. I mean, it's extremely important for the capital regions, because they are actually, I mean, driving. And we have actually another concept which is actually related in this smart specialization. Thinking about regions, we believe highly that it is city-driven regions, and especially metropolitan city-driven regions. So it's more and more that the cities has the power. And I mean, of course, I mean, if we are looking in the Helsinki region, it is Helsinki and Espoo and Vantaa together, but Helsinki has a huge impact on the Helsinki region. And then thinking about, are there any other actually regions that are doing the smart specialization strategies, which are the capitals? Amsterdam is an excellent example. Amsterdam is the innovation capital 2016. And they have been heavily involved in the smart specialization. Of course, why? They want to have the European money for their investments. And Netherlands is exceptional to use the European money, everything which is related, I mean, to that. And then if we are looking, the next one, which is innovation capital, is Paris this year, 2017. So and they have the smart specialization, and they have heavy, impact also. Now, the entrepreneurial activities. Even Macron himself actually has put, the emphasis that Paris needs to have those, quarters, for or big houses for the entrepreneurs. So there is, place for the metropolitans, and then they have the important role. They can play the key role actually in the Europe. And then thinking about actually these, spearhead initiatives, and dividing. I don't know. That's basically. What I actually advise: think about from the capabilities. And where do you want to actually to put your, resources? Of course, there are those, resources and capabilities that are actually, already earlier on built and build on those. But there could be also the new ones which are related, because it is the combination which is actually, creating the value in the future. And thinking about, because if you are putting your resources and then you want to do something new, it is possible. The one example, because it always actually relates me, because for example Porsche said in 1980s that for Finland, I don't know, did they say to Sweden, don't actually invest on telecom at all. That was Porsche's analysis to our government, and we know what happened. So you never know, because in the creation of new businesses, you need to be very, stop on the vision, and of course there are risks, but there's everywhere. But if you cannot create without risks, you cannot create neither the opportunities.
I think this was a question or comment that raised a lot of thoughts. I think John will have the opportunity to give a final comment before we have to end, because we are about 10 o'clock. Right?
Just very quickly. When it comes to the concept of smart specialization, like the key part of the theory in the academic side is that you have to have the kind of critical mass of innovation stakeholders to be able to make this successful. So big cities like Stockholm do have the critical mass, but as Maria keeps telling me, they're having real issues creating the kind of clusters in collaboration. Now, that's an interesting question for everybody. Why is that? And I think that's something for everybody to kind of think about themselves individually. But I've been living in Stockholm for 2 years now, and I feel like there's a curious mentality actually in this city. Coming from the UK, I hear about the kind of famous Swedish socialistic attitude, but living in Stockholm, the socialistic attitude doesn't seem to extend far beyond paying your taxes, actually. And I think this needs to be addressed, because the bottom line is, if your business or your university has all the funds available to be successful in going through the innovation process and getting research to the market, then good luck to you. But in most cases, I don't think that's going to be the case. So in that case, you've got to start playing by the rules of the game if you want to get access to national and European funding. And the rules of the game are, you've got to collaborate, and you've got to show that the products and the services that you're creating are sustainable and they solve societal challenges. Therefore, I think Stockholm in particular needs to develop a more socialistic attitude and approach. When it's one thing about businesses being possessive and individualistic, but I think you've got to take a broader perspective, and I think we can all learn from that, particularly at Christmas. Okay. Cheers.
So thank you all. I think this has been a very interesting discussion. Thank you.